Welcome to the Depth Dive. We are hitting the road today, really looking at these high-speed changes in trucking. Everything from like complex fraud rings and big regulatory shakeups to huge market shifts. But what we really found digging into the sources is that success, it's not just about policy from Washington or Ottawa, it's often down to those tiny moments.
That's exactly it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're trying to connect things that seem totally separate, right? Like
Yeah.
mandatory chains in the mountains and how good your first coffee is. Because they do connect. They
Yeah.
hit your safety, your compliance, and yeah, your wallet immediately. So our mission here really is to show that path to stability. Succeeding out there means managing your time, not just for the shippers, not just for the loads, but, and this is crucial, for yourself. Building that personal financial shield because the industry, well, it's always going to have turbulence with rates and rules changing.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. And since stability starts with being prepared, maybe the first step is fueling the driver. Let's talk coffee. Trucker coffee culture. We looked at sources like Truckers Spill the Beans, and it really confirms this isn't just about, getting caffeine, it's about finding a real cup. Something that, as they say, wakes up your bones. Not just hot brown water, it's a quality of life thing drivers notice right away.
Oh, yeah. And what's really interesting is this whole coffee war thing. It's real. The big chains, they're figuring out that better coffee, even specialty brews, keeps drivers loyal. It's kind of an acknowledgement, right? Drivers want to feel respected, better service, better coffee. It's part of that.
And the data definitely shows who's getting that loyalty. Let's start with the standard. Pilot Flying J drivers call it the reliable OG. I mean, they're everywhere near the big interstates. Quality's pretty consistent, and crucially, they take my rewards points for free refills. That consistency means a lot when you're running hard.
Absolutely. The driver view on this is just practical. There was one quote, ain't gourmet, but I can walk in with my eyes half closed and know exactly what I'm getting. And when you're days into a haul, reliability, that often beats rolling the dice on something new.
Then you've got the places that are almost destinations themselves. Like Buc-ee's, one trucker called it Disneyland for grown-up truckers, which, wow. Known for strong, fresh coffee, sure, but also the gourmet options and, yeah, those famous, wildly clean bathrooms.
Yeah, though we got to include that warning from the source, right? The danger of that brisket sandwich.
Yeah.
It could genuinely eat up your whole 30-minute break if you're not careful.
That's a serious risk. Okay, and then there are great regional players too, like Quick Trip or Quick Star. That's big in the Midwest. They do locally roasted coffee, free refills if you bring your own mug.
Right.
And people mention just the overall friendly, clean vibe.
And don't sleep on sheets on the East Coast either. They're really strong on customization. Mochas, macchiatos, cold brew, whatever you want. Plus, they have a cheap refill program for their cardholders. And you see different angles here too, right? Budget-focused drivers, they're saving serious money, hundreds a year using these reward programs. It's a small thing, but it adds up. Gives you a bit of an edge if you track expenses closely.
Okay, so from a nice hot cup of savings,
Yeah.
let's shift gears to the cold, hard reality of compliance, the rules that can cost you big time if you drop the ball.
Yeah, and we have to start with one that's hitting right now, seasonally. Colorado's mandatory chains law.
Right. Colorado does not mess around with this must-carry law. Basically, if you're in a commercial motor vehicle, a CMV over 16,000 pounds, you got to carry approved traction devices, chains usually, or ATDs, September 1st to May 31st.
And you absolutely need to know where this applies. It's focused on those high mountain passes, specifically I-70 west of Morrison, and key parts of US 50, 160, and 285. And this isn't just like a suggestion. The fines, they start at $500. Just for not having the right gear.
And it doubles, right? Goes up to $1,000 plus fees if you actually block the road because you weren't chained up properly.
Exactly. $1,000 plus surcharges. It's serious money. And the driver perspective, it highlights that constant struggle. You know the risk, but sometimes the feedback is the scheduler just pushes us through anyway. But the law puts it on you, the driver. So you have to know the specs. Straight trucks need 4 chains. And cables. Forget it on single drive axle combos. Not allowed. The regulated view is straightforward. Enforcing this keeps roads open, keeps commerce moving through those critical spots, and knowing where those 130 chain X stations are, that's just mandatory planning now.
Okay, so that's a very specific local compliance issue. Let's pivot way up north. Nova Scotia, there's a big market shift happening there. They were getting rid of a really old policy, the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, this is a huge deal for competition up there. For decades, this 80-20 rule basically said 80% of provincial highway contract trucking had to go to local Nova Scotia companies.
Classic protectionism, right? Designed to keep the business local.
So why get rid of it now? They're starting in 2026, and the government's saying,
It's outdated.
That's the line. Outdated, and apparently it violates some international trade agreements because it restricts open competition. They argue shifting to a market-based model will create more opportunities.
But the local guys aren't happy.
No, not universally. This is where you see that clash.
Hmm.
The local carrier view, voiced by their association president, Doug Faulkner, he's deeply worried that big companies from outside the province will just come in and swallow up all the bids, which raises a massive question for everyone. If you're not local, this could be a huge chance to expand. But if you are local, you need to look at your costs, your positioning, like right now, because when that competition hits full force, the risk of rates getting driven down is very real. So things like your reliability, your safety record, your local know-how, that becomes your main defense.
Wow. Shows how a global trade deal can ripple down to affect who's paving highways in Canada. All right, now things get maybe even more interesting. Let's look at the future of trucking leadership and also some really sophisticated threats that are hitting operations right now.
Okay, future first. The American Trucking Association, the ATA, they're making a point about the next generation. They welcomed college students to their big management conference and exhibition, the MCE, through this Trucking U initiative.
Trucking you. So the idea is bring in fresh talent, get students networking with executives, seeing the big picture strategy.
Exactly.
Right.
And the mainstream view is, yeah, this is great. Good for the industry, need new ideas, new blood.
But there's always a but. What about the drivers actually doing the work now?
Right, that's the feedback from the sources. Kind of a, great, but what about the folks in the seat now? Like, are we part of this future planning, or are we just being watched from, above?
Mhm.
And the theme of that MCE, a united front, driving policy in a new era, it signals big changes coming. Tech, regulations. So if you, the current operator, aren't paying attention to these high-level talks and tech trends, you could find yourself sidelined when those changes actually hit the road.
Okay, shifting to threats happening now, and this one is pretty chilling. This major cargo theft scheme, the Sing organization. This wasn't like a simple heist, it was more like financial fraud.
Totally. They were using fake carriers, but getting legitimate carrier IDs somehow. Then they'd bid on high-value loads, electronics, appliances, and just divert them. Gone.
How were they getting legit IDs?
It looks like they were spoofing identities, maybe finding small carriers or ones that were dormant, and basically hijacking their credentials. They exploited the trust built into digital load boards, inserted a ghost carrier right into the system. So the takeaway for every carrier, every broker, you have got to vet partners relentlessly. Check DOT numbers, MC numbers, insurance status, constantly. And if you're an owner-operator, you need to watch your own identity like a hawk, because criminals are actively trying to spoof legitimate profiles to steal freight using your good name.
Man. Okay, one more threat. This one about physical space. The zoning showdown up in Caledon, Ontario. You've got a trucking facility trying to get rezoned for repairs, but after they were allegedly already operating illegally.
Yeah, and this highlights just how vital doing your homework on land use is. The local residents, they're obviously worried. Noise, parking issues, but also the precedent, right? Operate first, ask permission later. That's a dangerous path.
Yeah.
For drivers, for small carriers, zoning dictates everything. Where can you legally park? Where can you do repairs? And this isn't just one town. Municipalities are getting serious. They're forming illegal land use task forces just to track down unpermitted truck operations.
Okay, so let's pull all this together. We've gone from $1,000 fines in Colorado, expansion risks in Nova Scotia, all the way to sophisticated identity theft rings targeting cargo. The common thread seems to be volatility, constant change, risk you can't always control from behind the wheel.
Precisely. And we know drivers often feel, disrespected or let down by policies, but the absolute best way to support yourself, it's building financial control. That's your shield. Your protection against freight rates tanking or sudden economic shifts.
And building that shield comes back to managing your time, right? Like Hervy advises, managing time for yourself, using that off-duty time wisely, whether you're sipping that Buc-ee's coffee on break or waiting out a reset.
Exactly. That downtime, it's valuable. And the sources really stress using it to learn flexible new skills that can add income. We're not just talking random side hustles here. It's about using tech relevant to your work. Maybe it's learning basic AI tools to help predict lane rates better when you're bidding, or even simple stuff like using content tools on your phone or tablet to organize and review broker contracts while you're off duty. These are things that don't take huge amounts of time but can have a high impact, ways to create extra streams of recurring online income.
So using your time smarter, not just harder, building resilience. So when the market does shift or, yeah, you get hit with a big fine, you're not knocked out financially, that really sounds like the path to being able to retire when you want to, not just because you have to keep driving.
That's the goal. Financial stability gives you options, gives you control.
Okay, so this deep dive really confirms it. You have got to stay proactive, stay informed, know the strict rules, like Colorado's must-carry law. Understand market shifts, like what's happening in Nova Scotia, and definitely protect yourself against these new sophisticated threats like cargo ID theft.
Yeah. The industry demands you carry physical chains, specific safety gear in certain places. That's just compliance, non-negotiable. But here's our final thought, something to really chew on. What knowledge tools, what financial strategies are you actively carrying, actively using to secure your personal foundation, to make sure you're ready for whatever shifts are coming next in this industry? Because change is coming.
Stay compliant, absolutely stay safe out there, and keep digging. Think about how that off-duty time can work for you. Keep learning and stay ready.